Hello! Welcome back to the Long Distance Love Bombs podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Jeremy Goldberg, and today's guest is Donovan Hall. Donovan is a teacher. He is a youth advocate. He is an individual who has transformed his own life from being a substance abusing, suicidal youth into now being a somewhat self-described modern day Mr. Rogers. He is a teacher. He was a former middle school teacher. His primary focus is trying to help his kids and his students to love themselves. And so he takes a very holistic approach to teaching. He runs youth development programs. He's a speaker, a storyteller, an educator. He tries to help his students build positive relationships with themselves. He's so great. Every so often a guest will come on for the first time to the podcast, and immediately within about 10 seconds it just clicks. The energy is very aligned, let's say, and the vibes are flowing, and Donovan is like that. I feel like we would be good pals if he lived nearby. Maybe we'll be good pals anyway. But we talk about the education system. We talk about gratitude practice, talk about self-love, self-acceptance. It's a really fascinating conversation, and he's just such a good heart. He's like a living, breathing heart, this guy. This human is really passionate about kids. Some of the videos that I've seen of him on Instagram or YouTube were just so heartwarming and endearing, and the way that he approaches teaching and his philosophies about life and trying to express love and support for those that he's mentoring are completely aligned with my own. And we just jam. We fucking jam in this one. And we laugh a lot. Donovan opens up about his past, his heartache, all of those things. It's a fantastic episode. I encourage you to check this dude out on Instagram. I've included links in the show notes. And enjoy this one. Without further ado, this is Donovan Hall. This episode is brought to you by Cured Nutrition. Cured is the leader in CBD supplementation with an entire line of products designed to take your everyday life to its ultimate potential. Their daily staples are formulated with an in-house clinical herbalist, which has taken the traditional CBD regimen to an entirely new level of optimization. If you're anything like me, you like waking up feeling good and living well. You've probably toyed around with the idea of finding healthy alternatives to jumpstart your morning. Personally, it's why I start my day with Cured Rise, which is their focus supplement. It's a powerhouse blend of functional mushrooms like lion's mane and cordyceps, broad spectrum CBD, and powerful adaptogens. Gives me clean, clear, and sustained energy without any of the caffeine jitters or crash that I get with coffee. After I get going, Aura is next. It's another blend of functional mushrooms, CBD, and adaptogens, but it's got a twist. We all know how important it is to sustain our immunity nowadays, and this covers all of my bases. The vitamin D, prebiotics, crucial antioxidants are delivered straight to the gut, which is the foundation of our emotional and physical health. Am I right? Second brain. It's where the majority of our serotonin production and immune function begin, or it keeps everything in check, performing at its best. So I have one less thing to worry about, and I obviously cannot forget Zen. I use it every night. It is certainly why it has become Cured's #1 selling relaxation and sleep product. You know the long nights spent tossing and turning? Yeah, not with this stuff. It has ingredients like reishi mushroom, ashwagandha, magnesium, passion flower, broad spectrum CBD. So thankfully, restlessness is something of the past. Cured Nutrition products are your answer for a daily dose of health. Visit curednutrition.com. That's CURED nutrition.com. Be sure to use the coupon code LOVEBOMBS, and at the checkout you will save 10% off your order. I'm going to push this button, and then I have your consent to record the meeting. Donovan Hall, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm super excited to be here, Jeremy. Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, we were just jamming for like 10 minutes. We've decided we're best friends.
Hanging out, you know.
Our worldviews are heavily aligned. And maybe that's a good jumping off point to explain why you're sitting in front of me. Is I was on Instagram one day and down a rabbit hole of some kind, whether induced by an algorithm or a friend, and somehow was watching your face saying words for about 10 seconds. And then I was like, I like this guy. I want to talk to this dude. He seems interesting. And I found your Instagram page and just sent you a message like, hey, you want to be on the podcast? And here we are.
Yeah.
But for those who have no idea who you are or have never gone down an Instagram rabbit hole like I did, I've never seen your face. Like, who are you? What's your deal? How do you describe yourself?
What a great question. Now, when someone asks me that, then I think like, oh, this must be when I ask, like what it feels like when I ask my kids. Like, that's a very big question. I think that the easiest way to kind of sum up who I am is that I am just like a lifelong youth advocate. And youth advocate means teacher, it means coach, it means speaker, it means content creator. But a lot of the work that I do resonates with adults because, surprise, surprise, kids are humans and adults are humans. And so people will be shocked that the things I teach kids work with adults, but, it's universal work. Like you said earlier, my main focus, my work with kids is helping kids build positive self-identity. And the way I describe that to kids to kind of like meet them on their level is like help kids become their own best friends. I think it's something that we're not taught a lot in this world. We're taught to be selfish in a lot of ways, but this kind of work is not about being selfish. It's about like loving yourself. And what I've seen and from my own experience and from just witnessing kids grow is like the happier and more confident you are in yourself, the less that you're attacking other people, the less that you're viewing the world as a threat. And I think that we have a lot of people in this world who view life as a threat, right?
Really?
Yeah, I do. Because I think
I was being sarcastic and facetious.
Oh, I was like, you want me to go down it? I
will. You think so? But yeah, happy for you to go down it if you'd like. So your background is as a teacher, right?
Kind of.
Okay. Well, we should maybe zoom back then. What?
I know. It's because like I didn't really get a chance to describe it. And so a lot of people think that I'm like a credentialed teacher and stuff, but I actually went to school for journalism and theater and had no interest in working with kids. And this lady who was teaching me acting was like, you should teach kids. And I laughed at her. I was like, you don't even know who I am. Like, are you kidding me? Like, no kid wants to learn from me. I was like, ew, kids are gross. So I was like 20. And she was like, I'll pay you $60 to come sit in a classroom and not do anything. And I was like, oh, wow, what a great opportunity. This sounds so like aligned with me as a person. So I went and I sat in that classroom. And then they asked me to like, play. Actually, the woman used me as a prop because she was like, this is Mr. Donovan. He's here to make sure that you follow the rules. And I was like, yo, chill. Like, I don't know what that means. But I think just being tall and being like commanding in a room of kindergartners, the kids were like, oh my God, this guy's a threat. So I played games with them and I was like, yo, this is really fun. And then I just took her up on the opportunity. I taught with this theater company for a while. And then that led me to positive youth development programs. And so I taught gymnastics, I taught like public speaking, I taught leadership classes, I taught theater, I taught like drone flying to kids. Basically, like anything you can think of, I taught the kids. And the through line through all that work was helping kids grow and doing it in a way that's not connected to grades, because the only conversation we really have about kids, there's like school and their grades, and that's such a small part of who they are. And so I got to see what it's like to help kids grow and to lift these positive things up about themselves and how much they like thrived in those spaces. And I just started to ask myself, like, why are we not teaching these things in school? Like, why are we not giving opportunities for kids to develop character or develop resilience or grit? And so I brought it into schools. In the last 3 years, I've been teaching in a school. So I'm a teacher, but not like as our society would say, not a real teacher, because I'm not credentialed. And so that it's just easier to say teacher, but for me, youth advocate works better because teacher is a position of power, and I'm not trying to be a person in power over kids. I'm trying to lift kids up, and that's more of an advocate's work. So that's my little spiel, I guess.
And so you've been teaching. What are you teaching? I mean,
So
when you think about the standard institutional systems, like, are you a math teacher? Are you an English teacher? Are you a history teacher? Are you a Spanish
absolutely
teacher? Right?
none of the above. So it's kind of tough because I'm trying to stay succinct with what I'm saying, but it just is all like there's like 7 rabbit holes in front of me when you ask that. I just like a little bit of my personal background. I did school right, as in like I got good grades and I had friends and I was in clubs and I wasn't too much of a nuisance. And like some of my teachers liked me and stuff like that. But I suffered from depression and anxiety and a really, really poor self-image for most of my childhood. And I thought, like, if I do this right, like if I go to school and get good grades, I'll feel good about myself. But those things like don't. That's not how that works. And in a lot of ways, that's the message that we're sending kids, which is like, do well in school. And if you're doing well in school, then cool, that's it, right? But that's such a small part of who we are. So when I was younger, my depression got so bad that I became suicidal. And when I was in college, like because of strong substance abuse and stuff, I almost killed myself. And my friend killed himself instead. Like we didn't know, obviously. I had a date picked out, and then like a week before he killed himself, and I had no idea. And so I was suddenly faced with the reality of suicide. And I realized like I can't do that. Like I can never do that to my friends and family because it just happened in my life. And I remember feeling helpless and feeling like I wish I knew. And this person seemed totally fine. And like, how could I have not been there? And so I couldn't live like how I was living before, but also like I couldn't kill myself. And so I got really deep into how do I take care of myself? Like, how do I learn how to like myself? How do I learn how to love myself? And I started learning practices and stuff. And I realized pretty quickly, I was like, yo, this would have changed my life if I would have learned this when I was a kid. Like if someone would have just been like, yo, talk to yourself kind of, or like, like literally learn your strengths, or like focus on your core values, or like watch your self-talk, right? Like if someone would have talked to me about these things, it doesn't mean that I wouldn't have negative things happen in life, but I would have been able to handle them differently. And I wouldn't have taken it out on myself to the point where I wanted to take myself out, And so I committed to it. I was like, I want to teach kids these things. Like I want to teach it to them desperately, because so many young people I know, like young adults, are trying to undo all this harm that they've done to themselves or that society has done to them because they didn't get the support that they needed. And so what I teach are what I call like self skills to kids, like skills that literally help them build positive view of themselves in the world that's grounded in like them, not grounded in like, the things they own or the things that they do, but just like their humanity in general, like a kind of base point of like, I'm valued. Right. I'm a person, I belong, and I gotta like myself first before I even try to get other people to like me. So yeah, self skills is kind of in the name for it. More recently, people have been saying social emotional skills. I've been talking about this stuff for like 10 years. So in the past couple of years, people are like SEL, and I'm like, yeah, like I'm not trying to say I was right, but yeah, come on, this is the stuff we should have been talking about with kids for a long time. So that's what it's called.
I love this. I just absolutely am 100% behind all of this. I've ranted about it myself. I have a PhD, so I felt like I was in a good position to criticize the entire education system. It's like, I've done it. I got all the degrees, and guess what? The whole thing's fucked. Yeah. Like at no point are we taught actually how to be a human.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We're taught to memorize things. We're thrown facts and figures, and we're assessed against our peers to build competition. We're taught that external validation is a metric of our identity worth pursuing. At no point are we taught how to have a hard conversation, how to love yourself, how to feel things, how to have an argument, how to express love and gratitude. It's like,
oh, come on. It's like, this is like core thing.
It's so rational and reasonable to, like when we speak these things out loud, and every conversation I've ever had about this, the person nods and agrees. It's like, yeah, it would have been really helpful to have somebody care about me as a human growing up in school.
I had one person at a party one time, like, shoot my idea down. And because I'm always like, yo, healthy, like, let's debate it, let's talk about it, right? And I've never experienced something where people are just like, yeah, like right away, like this work. It's so rare for people to be like, no, like this is not good. And that's what that guy said. But before I even had a chance to engage with him, like 6 people around me attacked him. They were like, "What's wrong with you? This is by the nation." And I was like, "Whoa, chill, chill." Like he's like, "Oh," he's like, "This is really positive." And I was like, "I didn't mean for them to," because they got really aggressive about it. And I still have people who will say like, "Oh, typical leftist, and he's trying to ruin America, and like he's ruining my kids." And I just think about it like, by being nice to them, like by caring about them, that's a threat. And what you said earlier is like, I used to say all the time that the education system was broken. And then someone just looked me in the face and was like, no, it's not. It's working perfectly. And I was like, well, how? And they're like, because the education system was designed to create workers. It was designed to create like thoughtless, right? Like pigeonhole, like put you in a box, do the work, like capitalist kind of stuff, right? And it's not created to help people thrive or learn who they are and to build like a stronger connection with themselves. Like that's not what school is designed to do. And in that sense, it's like we're not serving kids at all. Education is barely serving kids. It's just like indoctrination. It's serving this higher purpose of we need workers.
I suppose, sorry to cut you off. I suppose it's worth stepping back and clarifying that when I say the whole system is broken, that is not a criticism of those working in the education system. That is not a criticism of teachers. Mm-hmm. I'm not anarchist suggesting that we burn schools to the ground. I suppose with more clarity, I'm suggesting that the vision that I have for the future and the holistic wellness system that I think would be more beneficial than the current one requires a different way to educate and guide young people.
Yeah, I mean, teachers are the ones who are, for the most part, like the first line of defense for these kids. And they're the ones that, like, for the most part, are doing their best for them. Mm. And I think that one of the reasons that I'm able to do the work I'm doing is because I didn't go to school for teaching. Like, I learned from being in the work with them and then from doing my own research into positive and educational psychology to bring this stuff together. But for a lot of these teachers, like, they are literally sacrificing everything to be able to be there for these kids. And a lot of times what I see is teachers fighting the system from within it. And it's a shame because they're already putting so much work into what they do. And then to have to put extra work into fighting a system that is not sustainable for teachers, is not helping kids thrive. Teachers become, for the most part, not every teacher, but for the most part, teachers become teachers to support and help kids, right? And so a lot of times I'll hear teachers really kind of struggle with the conflicts between, I want to support and help kids, but also like recognizing that there's a lot of things that are not right with the education system that has nothing to do with the teachers. So when people will look on my videos and say, well, every teacher should be like you and blah, 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 I'm like, no, that's not true. That's not true at all. Like, that's not. And it's very rarely the teacher's fault. I think that there are a lot of teachers who do harm to kids intentionally, and that's a bummer. But for the most part, if you're a teacher, it's because you have good intent and heart. And and the education system plays off of that. It feeds off of the fact that we want to help these kids and we will give everything for these kids, which is why teachers are overworked and underpaid. So I'm glad you clarified that too, because a lot of people will think that I'm like saying that teachers are wrong. I'm like, nah, it's not the teachers, right? The teachers are like making the best of what they can. And that's what's been really tough for me, is leaving the education system, is because I was like, I can't change the system. Like, I have to do something outside of it, because I'm going to burn myself to the ground trying to fix something. And I might have a small impact in one school, but like there's a larger system at play that feels very, very difficult to tackle. So that's why I moved away from the schools and then kind of doing more like content creation and speaking for kids, because I just want to talk to them about this stuff. And I also feel like this stuff shouldn't have grades attached to it. I shouldn't have to grade a kid on their ability to give gratitude. Like, that doesn't work for me, because that's an intrinsically motivating thing. Yeah. And so for me to extrinsically try to motivate them, it doesn't make sense to be like, you're giving gratitude so great today, A+ for you. Like, that doesn't work. I don't want to do that,
Yeah, I was just imagining a system in which you're trying to build up a student's self-esteem. And you're like, you know what? You're not doing a very good job of building up your self-esteem. So I'm going to give you a D.
Like you're not growing, right?
You're not growing enough. So I'm going to give you a D.
Like that's like heartbreaking to me. And honestly, like now that I don't work for this school, I change their grades all the time because it was like I want to reflect their effort. I want to reflect their heart that they're putting into this, right? Because that's what really matters. And like to see a kid have a realization of like I need to be nicer to myself, or to see a kid be like I'm shifting from fixed to growth mindset, like that's what needs to be rewarded, not like can you define what this word means, or can you feed back this information I fed you, you know?
Yeah, I remember in high school, high school was just easy for me. Because quite simply, I could memorize stuff quickly.
Yeah.
And exactly. I remember in 10th grade physiology, this one incident, I haven't talked about this in so long, but perhaps because it's not a really great story, time will tell. But I remember my buddy Jonathan, like we got to class one day and it's 8 a.m. or whatever. And he's like, you ready for this quiz? And I was like, what quiz? And I was like, there's a quiz? What chapter? And I just opened the chapter. I like read all the bold words, jammed through it real quick, got it into my sponge brain. And he had spent a couple hours studying the night before. And I did better on the quiz than he did. And I remember that moment, like when we got the grades, feeling not being able to place why it felt wrong, and kind of stupid, but also feeling really bad for Jonathan because through no fault of his own, maybe he learns in a different way than I do. Maybe he learns from a hands-on approach, or he needs to hear it and listen to something, or maybe he just doesn't care about memorizing words. So anyway, that's all to say, I don't know what the point of that was, other than to suggest that I think the current system requires a certain kind of learning, a certain kind of brain, if you will, a certain kind of student. And if you are not born like that, or if you have different gifts or abilities, those are not recognized or encouraged or adored in the way that they perhaps should be. Is that fair?
Well, and I mean, completely. And I think that goes back to this bigger picture of like why I teach kids to build, inner sanctuary and to build safety within themselves, is because I think one of the biggest things that we don't talk about is that kids are actively seeking identity. And so when I work with middle schoolers, people like talk trash about them because they struggle so much. But for me, it's like they don't know who they are, and they're aware that they're a person, but they don't know who they are. And so the only system of kind of internal validation that we have for kids is grades. If you don't fit within that system, then you're not going to find any identity in yourself. And then that means there's no value in you. And if you don't have value and you don't like know who you are, that's like a safety issue. I don't feel safe, right? So that's why you see kids go and join gangs, or you see kids go and get into like substance abuse, or you see kids get hyper focused on social media or stuff, is because they're trying to find a place where their identity is valued. And school is not that place for so many people. I did great in high school too. I don't give a shit about what happened to me in high school. My teachers didn't care about me. I had like 2 teachers who cared about me, and the rest were just like, you get B's, you're fine, right? I didn't learn who I could be in this world until I had to speak at my best friend's funeral when I was 18. And they asked me to speak because they were like, you're really good at storytelling. And I was like, okay. And I did it. And it was the first time in my life where I was like, wow, like my ability to communicate and my ability to share and storytell had a positive impact on people. And obviously if I could change that, I'd have my friend back, but I can't. But that experience was the first time in my life where I was shown my humanity, like, oh, like I am of value outside of school. I can do something that can positively contribute to people. And now I'm moving into speaking full time. And if I hadn't had that experience, I don't know if I would have found it, going into school for journalism was like, I'm good at storytelling, I guess. And that was the easiest thing I could connect it. And I hated journalism. They told me I had too much personality for it. Like literally these like old white guys were just like, honestly, you're just like too much for writing. And I was like, okay, cool. Well, I don't feel like, there's no identity, there's no safety. And it seems dramatic to say, but when you see kids who are killing themselves, right? Like I hate to go dark like that, but I think we need to talk about it because kids are doing it at alarming rates, right, is because they don't feel safe. They don't feel valued. They don't feel like they know who they are. And that's not their fault. That's not their fault. And it's like, this needs to be a conversation outside of school, because we as a society need to treat kids better. We need to treat kids better, because if we treat kids better, we're treating humanity better. They are literally the building blocks of our society. And so when I am like being nice to kids and people are saying that's radical, that's mind blowing to me, because it's like, this is like the bare minimum I can do for them, you know?
100% agreed. It's so surreal to me that being kind to children is a radical idea.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. That's a radical idea. Me telling my kids that I care about them and that I love them is like a radical idea. And it just blows my mind, you know? And I, a lot of the things I do for my kids are the same things I did with my friends as like a young adult. Like I like showed them kindness. I have some of the best friends in the world because like I tried this stuff with them first, where it's like, how do I support you? How do I lift you up? How do I create space for you? How do I like love you and tell you that I'm here and, you know, like value you for who you are and stuff. And I remember like talking to like young adults, especially men, who would get emotional and be like, literally no one's talked to me like this before. And that's like shocking to me. So I'm on this big mission, but it's like, you know, I just think if people liked themselves more, like for who they are, not for their outside stuff, right? For just like their internal like humanity, I think we would see a different society, you know?
Yeah, I agree. And I'd love to dive into that and perhaps step back a moment. So you described yourself maybe before we were recording as a Black queer kid.
Mm-hmm.
And now you've shared that you were suicidal and that you lacked the sort of knowledge, skills, and abilities to love like yourself. How did you begin that transition from that version of yourself towards this now new age Mr. Rogers type character?
Well, you know, it's kind of like, it's tough to think about, because it's kind of like I had to burn myself to the ground. Like I was so close. You know what I mean? Like I remember how close I was to killing myself, because everything felt okay. Like a couple of weeks before, suddenly like nothing bothered me anymore. And I was so detached from everything. And people were like, wow, you seem so much better. But they didn't know it was because I was ready to go. Right. Like it's like, it doesn't matter that my friends are mad at me. It doesn't matter that I quit my job. It's like, it doesn't matter that I quit my job, right? Because I'm leaving soon. And that feeling of just serenity of like, none of this matters because I have to leave. Like I got there. And then to have, you know, when my friend killed himself and I was talking to my friend about it, when he called me and told me, it was like somebody had dropped me back in my body, and like all 6 months of emotions that I had been suppressing, that I had no access to, were just poured back into me. And the first thing I learned, the first practice I learned was like gratitude. And I would struggle to get out of bed, and I would have to like do gratitude practices. And it was like, what am I thankful for today? And I remember the first couple of weeks was like, I'm thankful that like I'm alive. Right. And that's it. And then after a while, it was like, I'm thankful for the people in my life. And then it was like, I'm thankful for opportunities. And then I started to go deeper. And now it's like, you know, I'm thankful for gravity, and I'm thankful for, you know, like fresh air. I'm grateful for like, you know, animals and stuff like that. And gratitude was the first skill that really grounded me back in myself and reminded me, because I felt like in a way a part of me had died, like, and that part of me was replaced with kind of love, you know. And it sounds kind of like, you know, cheesy to say, but it's true. It's just the truth. Gratitude helped me feel love again in the world. And I committed kind of to this work. So I think gratitude was the first like skill that I used and practiced, that I learned, that really kind of saved me and helped me transform. And so the parallels were interesting, because I was working with kids, and then I was also like struggling in my own life. And so I started to like do gratitude, and I was like, well, gratitude helps me a lot. And I was like, well, what if I like taught the kids gratitude, right? So then I had parents calling and being like crying, and they're like, I don't know, Juliet just like stood up at the table and gave everyone gratitude today. And like, what are you doing to our kids? And I'm like, yeah, like, it's a good thing. But parents were crying because they'd never heard their kids express gratitude before. And then kids were seeing the immediate reaction. Kids were getting that like, oh, like, oh my God, my mom was so moved by that. Now I'm going to go tell my grandma, I'm going to go tell my teacher, I'm going to go tell my friend. So that's what I think the shift kind of just happened. It feels organically, but now that I look at it, it was kind of like a subconscious, just like, okay, this is working for me. I have this opportunity where I'm working with kids. No one's really watching what I'm doing, right? So I can kind of teach them whatever I want. and just seeing how like even in those programs, parents would compliment those things. Where it's like that was a theater program and a person would be like the intention setting or the gratitude or like the motivation building that you did with the kids. That's the stuff that really resonates. And then I committed to myself and I committed to my why. And those things are very closely intertwined. So it's not like a regular job where it's like I have this product outside of me that I'm working on and I can leave it. It's like, nah, it's just like me, this is all me. And yeah, I mean, it's just, it was tough. It was tough. And I Love Myself didn't start until like 4 years ago. That was a whole, because I had to like myself first. Right? Like I couldn't even jump to loving myself was like, yo, chill. Like, I don't even want to think about that right now. So I was like, can I just like myself first? Can I like who I am? And that was the first process. And then the second shift was love myself, which has taught me so much more in the past like 4 years.
Yeah. I love this. I love listening to you. It sounded like, so first follow-up question before we tackle the liking and loving yourself was, how do you teach gratitude?
So I teach kids, first of all, I give them the experience of recognizing impact. And so like asking kids, before I even really explain to them what gratitude is, asking them to thank someone in their life. Like, here's this little format. Who is someone that's really helped you and how can you go thank them? And so even like my second graders were doing it. And that was the buy-in, right? Where it was like, go try this and come back and tell us how it was. And kids were just like, my mom cried, or like, my brother hugged me for the first time, right? Or like, I started crying when I was giving gratitude. Like, I don't know what this is. And so then it's like, okay, cool. So when I did it at my last school, I had them email teachers. And say something that they appreciate about them. And teachers were crying. Like teachers were straight up crying because of these emails. And the kids were like, I had no idea that teacher needed to hear that. Like I had no idea. Like Miss A started crying in class today when she was reading our gratitude notes. Like one kid specifically said he saw her crying at her computer when the kids were working because she was reading gratitude notes. And she was smiling. He could tell that she was happy. And so then suddenly they're like, well, what is this? Like, what are we doing that's impacting people? And then we really explore gratitude and we talk about, it's more than thank you. And we talk about gratitude as a self-reflective process, but also like a connecting, building thing. I teach them gratitude statements. So it's kind of like a formula because it's like, you can't just like do gratitude. Suddenly it's a skill you have to build, right? Yeah. So like, it's like, I am thankful for, or I'm grateful for this person for doing this specific thing because of the impact it had on me. So it's like, I'm really grateful for my mom always like encouraging me to do my homework because it reminds me that like my family cares about my education, right? So suddenly it's not just thank you, mom. It's like, look what you did for me. This specific thing you did for me has helped me in this way. And so what I've seen is like kids kind of just take ownership of the work. And they start telling each other, like we had a gratitude letter writing day and I always would have to like drag kids out of the room. I'd have to like pull pencils out of hands because kids are just like, one more letter. And I'm like, you can do this anywhere. You don't have to just do this in this class. But then they were like, I give them 20 minutes and it's like, write a gratitude letter. It doesn't take 20 minutes to write a gratitude letter. So then the kids are like, well, I'm done. I'm like, well, what can you do? And they're like, write another one. I was like, yeah, right. And so suddenly like kids are like, I'm done. And then at the end of it, they have 17 gratitude notes to give out. So that's one way that we teach it. And I've been using a system called Give Thanks, which is an online website, kind of like a social media for gratitude for kids. And so kids can send each other gratitude messages, like in safe and kind of like in really clear ways. And so it just became like a culture of gratitude at this last school that I was at.
Yeah. Just a technical note, your mic just sounds a bit weird there for a moment.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, that's way better.
I don't know what happened.
The microphone. I'm grateful for the microphone. I'm grateful for the sound coming out because it allows me to hear your genius and spread the word.
See, that's what I'm saying, right? It works.
One thing that I've noticed through the years, like in my own experience, so my jam, like when I first got started, was kindness, and I was writing little notes and leaving them all over the place, and I realized that, I guess, two things. One was that the act of doing something good made me feel good. And that was weird as a 30-something to be like, wait, this feels good to do good. And like, I've read that before, but until I'd actually done it, it was like interesting. And then the second aspect was focusing my brand around kindness required me to not be a jerk. And it required me to hold myself to a higher standard of integrity and quality that was interesting. Like, oh, like I can't be the guy talking about kindness and then also be a jerk secretly.
Yeah.
That's out of alignment. That's not good. And so for you, it sounds similarly that, you know, the act of teaching gratitude feels good.
Yeah.
And then the act of like being the gratitude guy requires that you practice what you preach.
Yeah.
And then as a byproduct of that, you become a person who is somewhat magnetic, right? Or like, I want what he's got. Like Donovan seems to be living in a way that like he's always smiling, or like good things are happening to him. He's got good friends. Like, what's the deal? And so that experiential demonstration, I think, is also a really important piece.
Well, I mean, that's what happened with kids. That's you nailed it, because I thought you were going to say that about the kids, because that's what it was. Like, they were experiencing feeling good. They're like, whoa, like not only does my mom feel good, but like I feel good. Like, I've never seen my mom look like that before, and like I feel really good. And so, you know, creating, that's like one of the only skills I can really think of besides like kindness and you know, compassion and stuff, that's that altruism, where it's just like, I get something out of helping you, right? And that's good. That doesn't have to be a bad thing. And so someone said to me one time, well, like, I don't want gratitude just to become like trendy because everyone's doing it. And I was like, I hope it becomes trendy. Like, cool, right? Because we're going to do a lot better off. Something being trendy doesn't have to be bad, right? Like, if kids are passing this on because it feels good and it helps other people, great. I hope it's the most viral, trendy practice that happens to us. Because even if people are faking it, there's only so much that you can do. You can't even fake a gratitude statement, really. Like, it's kind of hard to do that.
Right.
I mean, kids tried.
Yeah.
They tried. They're like, hey, I'm thankful for, like, I don't know, like my teachers for like not giving up on me. And I'm like, I'm like, tell me more. And they're like, because like it showed me they care. I'm like, yeah, there it is, right? So even when the kids try to explore it, it's like, even if they're resistant to it, most of the time, it just helps. It helps them a lot, especially like what's the name? Atypical or non-neurotypical. I don't know the name of it, but it's like people whose brains basically work differently than mainstream brains. So like people who are like on autism scale and stuff like that. There's another, I think it's neurodivergent is the name of it. I've had a lot of kids who've also, gratitude has been a way for them to like create positive emotions in other people, which sometimes they can struggle with in terms of social interactions and like understanding people's emotions. Gratitude has been like a kind of grounding skill for them in that too.
That's interesting. So it sounds like what you're describing is if it's difficult or awkward for the individual to connect on a social cue scale or with emotions, that gratitude can be like a foundational skill to fall back on.
Yeah, just appreciation. You know, it kind of bridges that gap, and you can be, you know, you can have a classroom full of kids that not everyone is going to be friends, and that's cool. Like, that's fine. That's not the way the world works. I don't push that. Like, if y'all aren't friends, you're not friends. But like, when you are grateful for the other people being there and you can share that, it becomes a much different kind of community versus like a community of people who are just not connected, not friends. But like, kids can go, they would go like after class and like send a thank you note to someone for like speaking up in class today, or for like sharing their thoughts and stuff. And so people are being valued without having to like force friendship or force these connections, but just being like, hey, I see you. And that skill of like, hey, I see you is really important. Right? So gratitude is kind of like that, hey, I see you. And then the other skills I teach kids is kind of like to point back at themselves, like, hey, I see you. right? Like in a positive way. So it's like kind of both. I've never said it like that before, but in this conversation, I realized that it's very similar.
Right. And so that sounds like is the starting point towards liking yourself and then loving yourself. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. And I think that you can love yourself and not like yourself, but I think that's tough. Like that takes like a kind of weird level of commitment to like love and care about yourself, but not like yourself. I haven't run into anybody who feels that way. But
Yeah.
like I didn't like myself and I didn't love myself. And those two things were different. Like I didn't like who I was. Like I couldn't even look myself in the mirror, right? Because I was so embarrassed of myself. I was really big into substance abuse, which is something that the Today Show is not going to talk about, right? Like I told them, but they're not going to talk about that. I struggled with substance abuse because I didn't have to like be me, like I could step out of myself, but in ways that were really harmful to myself. Like I wasn't drinking like, or and smoking like a teen just to have fun. Like I was trying to escape who I was, and liking myself first started with like understanding myself and being compassionate and being kind to myself. Basically kind of like becoming my own friend of like, you get put in a partner, like a group project, and you don't know this rando person and you're supposed to work together for this like semester. And then you got to find some common ground. You got to find some kind of space, right? And then eventually you can turn into this beautiful collaboration. But the first part, it's like, all right, who are you? Like before we even do anything, like who are you, right? And so that was kind of the first step for me of like, who am I, and who, like who am I that I don't have access to, I guess,
Yeah, the way I just thought about that was like, who are you really? Because I could see initially you'd be like, oh, I'm a drinker, I'm a smoker, not to do that, like I'm a midnight toker, like that song, right? It's like I did not mean that, but like there's that sort of false identity wrapped around the true identity, right? It's like those are all protection mechanisms against that big tender heart or you sharing what's really going on, right? And so it sounds like it's an excavation of sorts of like befriending your true self, perhaps.
Yeah. And like having to be, because at the same time I knew what I was doing was wrong for myself. And so the bigger issue was not even around like the substance abuse, but it was like why I'm doing this to myself, and also like how I'm treating myself around doing this. And so I use it almost as ammo against myself to be like, you idiot, like, you got a substance abuse problem, you're always messing up and you're depressed all the time. And I beat myself up more instead of being compassionate and instead of being kind to myself. And I had a therapist, because this is more about moving towards a love of myself. And the therapist was like, would you talk to your kid that way? Like if one of your students came up and said like, started just trashing themselves in front of you, what would you do? And I was like, oh, like hell no, I would not sit here and let them have that conversation. Like I would push them and I would help reframe things and blah, blah, blah. And she's like, well, why can't you do that for yourself? And I thought like, yeah, I was like, shit, I have no idea. I can't even do that. And she was like, can you do that right now? And I was like, no. And she was like, just try it. Like, just tell yourself it's okay that you're sad. And I was like, I don't want to do that. And she was like, just try it. And I was like, it's okay that I'm sad. And I just started like sobbing. I just like started sobbing. And I had to do practices where I like looked at pictures of myself when I was in high school and I forgave myself and I was compassionate with myself. Instead of being like, oh, I was such like an asshole, I was so wild when I was a kid. It was like, buddy, you were hurting so bad. You were so lost, man. I'm getting emotional just thinking about it. It's like, I don't even feel bad. I feel like I want to hug myself. I want to go back in time and be like, I see you, man. I see that you were trying your hardest. I see how sad you are. I see how much like these deaths in your life have impacted you and how no one is taking care of you the way you need. And I just want to be there for myself. And I used to think like, I wanted to block that side of my life out. I was embarrassed of it. And it was like, I know better. And now I'm going back and being like, bruh, like, I didn't know better. I was doing the best I could. And it may not have been what I wanted to do, but like I was trying to take care of myself as much as I could. I was trying to take care of myself. And so many people in this world are trying to take care of themselves in ways that actually do harm. It's taking care of themselves versus trying to feel safe and trying to feel safe in a pattern or safe in a way of being that doesn't really actually serve them,
Are you familiar with Gabor Mate's work at all?
I'm not.
Gabor Mate, he's a psychotherapist. He's brilliant. He's got a couple really amazing books, but he has this one quote that I think about often, which is, "Don't ask why the addiction, ask why the pain."
Mm.
Right? And so Donovan's got his head back, head on the desk.
Oh,
Things
I
are
almost
happening.
fell out of my chair. Come on.
Yeah. And so he works in trauma, and specifically he worked with really. He worked in one of the harshest parts of Vancouver, which is one of the harshest parts of Canada. When I say harsh, I mean like high proportion of drug addicts, homelessness, and he talks about how the vast majority, if not all of them, had suffered some amount of significant trauma as a child, whether that's sexual abuse, emotional abuse, foster care, etc. And as a consequence of that, they sought refuge in escapism and drugs. Mm-hmm. And so the way that he approached the treatment that he gave was to say, like, don't curse the heroin, like, thank God for the heroin. Like, it kept you alive. It was the one thing that you found that was strong enough to make that pain go away for as long as it did. And now you're older and you could start to do what you just described, Donovan, of like, really diving into that stuff and facing it as an adult and recognizing the safety that was lacking for you as a child, and you can offer that now, right? And so I think I can, when we stop talking, I can like recommend a couple things that I think you would really dig his perspective. Okay, so we were talking about how to like yourself.
Really quick?
Yeah.
Because what you were saying too is like something else. I don't really think I've made this connection out loud, which is what I wanted to say. It was like when kids are like, often we look at high schoolers because that's the age where people start to act out and stuff like that. But that's the age where kids have access to those things. And so there are middle schoolers who are doing stuff like that. If I had access to that when I was younger, I might have done those things when I was younger, because what my escapism was being okay, right? So my dad died when I was a kid, and I had 3 older brothers, and I kept being put in these positions of like, you're the one that makes us feel better. Like sitting in my mom's lap at my dad's funeral, or sitting between my mom and my grandma at my papa's funeral, or like speaking at my best friend's funeral when I was a kid. Like I played into this role of like, I help people feel better, and that's my value in this world. It doesn't matter how I feel as long as I'm helping other people feel better. And so I didn't get bad grades, I did the right thing and stuff like that, thinking that was safety for me. And so I have a lot of kids now who are struggling, but are trying to fit these roles of the perfectionist, or like the caretaker for their family, or like the one who deals with all their friends' emotional stuff, because they're finding safety in that role. And so, and people really like downplay that. But like I see kids have panic attacks when they think that they can't finish their work, because that to them is like, if I don't finish my work, I get a bad grade. If I get a bad grade, I'm not valued. If I'm not valued, I'm not safe. Right. And it's just this big, like, nasty process. So I went on both ends. Me doing things the right way was my escapism of like, I don't have to feel bad because I'm doing things the right way. And that will take care of it, but it didn't.
It's a really important idea that you've touched on, because I think anybody listening to this in this moment, like, you have stuff from childhood that was like a costume, a disguise, an identity that you adapted to, that is not actually deep down who you truly are, right? Mm-hmm. And so for me, I was the same. Like, my parents were getting divorced. I was always the one that got the good grades, right? And I was doing that, not at the time, I didn't realize what I was doing. I was just like, I'm smart. I'm a good student. That was part of my identity. But as I'm older and started unpacking that stuff, I was like, oh, like, my mom was really struggling, and I wanted her not to worry about me. Like, she had enough on her plate. So I'm going to go out of my way to try to make her feel better, be codependent, and like learn all of these skills that served me then, but then as an adult have manifested in ways that aren't of the highest regard, let's say. Yeah. Right. Where were we? We're talking about
liking and loving. I think
liking and loving.
Yeah.
How is your path right now in terms of fully accepting and loving yourself?
Oh, dude, it's so wild, because I have a Black queer woman who's my therapist, and I've had her for this past year. And let me tell you, man, If I didn't believe on angels on earth, like I do now, because this person has completely changed my life. I think self-love, liking myself was kind of about like being proud of my strengths and like really looking at myself and like accepting my body and accepting my, being mixed or being black, like all those things. And then like loving myself was way deeper. Loving myself was like learning how to set boundaries, and loving myself was like learning how to like accept genuine true love, and like getting over like not feeling like I deserve good things, or like asking for help. Like really, if I loved myself, that was my question, where it's like, if I loved myself, would I treat myself this way? If I loved my friend like this, would I treat them this way? Right.
Mm.
And most of the time, if it was no, then I wouldn't do it. And so right now, like I used to be so like I would be up till 3 o'clock in the mornings, like talking to friends or talking to like college students I was working with, or like just trying to help people. And I was like, my only value in the world comes from if I'm helping people. Right. So I started to I was like, wow, I like that I'm helping people. And I like that I can do these things. But loving myself was much deeper. And my therapist, that same lady, actually, this was like an emergency therapist I went. This is just this other person who taught me to love myself stuff. She was one who asked me about like when I talked to my kid that way. So that was before my current therapist. I just met with her one time. I hope to God that she's seeing my stuff. I hope that she's found it somewhere online and been like, I remember that guy, because she talked to me for 3 hours and changed my entire life. But basically she said, like, if I was to drop you on an island with basic amenities, like meaning you don't have to worry about survival, like, would you be happy? And I was like, no, because who could I help? Right. And she's like, yeah, but what does that tell you? Right. It's like that you don't feel good about being who you are unless you're helping people. And I was like, oh shit. Oh my God, you're right. And so now I'm like, drop me on an island, please, dude. I would give me a year away from people. I would love it, because I love. And I was like, there's something wrong with me. I was like, I don't want to be around people anymore. I don't want to hang out with people. What's wrong with me? I just want to be by myself and read and go on walks and stuff. And my therapist was like, yo, you like yourself. You like your company. Like, you love being with yourself. Like, so you still make time I still make time for my friends and stuff. But buddy, if I know I got a day ahead of myself where I get to just be with myself, like, oof, that's the best feeling. The only other feeling I can compare is when I get to work with the kids directly, but even that is like lower than when I get to just be with myself. And that's how I know that I like have learned to love myself. I've let go of relationships that were toxic. I've let go of relationships that like I even conditioned the other people to treat me like shit. Like, I've stepped away from all of that. I say no all the time. All the time. I'm like, no, I don't want to do that. People will be like, why aren't you talking? You look like you're upset. I'm like, no, I'm not. I don't want to talk. I don't have anything to say right now. And to other people, they may feel like I'm being like rude or, but I don't need to feel the air. I don't need to talk sometimes. Sometimes I can just sit and be cool. And I'm not going to let anyone force their opinion of how I should be on me, because nah, dude, I take care of myself. I'm good. If I want to say something, I'll speak. And that's just so different from how I used to be, where I was very impulse driven, and it was very like this urgency of like, you have to be this way, you have to show up this way, you have to take care of people. I want to do those things now, and I will do them, but also I want to take time for myself. I don't want my work to consume my life. I want to have love. I want to have family. I want to have hobbies. I want to have passions. And that's how I know that this is really self-love,
Yeah, it sounds like you fired yourself as the caretaker of everybody else's emotions.
I was.
It's like, I'm not in charge anymore.
No, I'm not. Like, I witness people around me. They're like, what do I do? And I'm like, I don't know, but you'll figure it out. I love you so much. Right. And then it doesn't mean that I'm saying no to my friends and family. That's really big. But it's just about boundaries, because sometimes I can't do anything. Right. And if you're having the same conversation with me about things that you're not willing to change or fix in your life, like, you're just using me as a sounding board. And after a while, that's not even helping you. So I have to just be like, yo, you will be okay. And if you need me, I'm here, and here's what I can offer. But that's only so much that I can do before people have to take care of their own selves,
Yeah. The annoying thing that I've found about self-love is that it seems to just never end, these lessons and these levels. Like, I get to a place where I'm like going for a walk in the woods, and I'm like, I love myself. I think I've made it, like I've unlocked the highest achievement level. And then something will happen, or someone will say something, or I'll read a book and be like, oh my goodness, I don't know I don't love myself at all. Like,
Well,
wow.
I think I think the self-love, I think it's a verb. I think it's a
Yeah.
practice. I think we have to consciously choose it. And sometimes for some people it's moment by moment because it's that bad.
Mm,
Some people it's day by day. And then there's some people like, I have to learn. And as I'm growing and learning, I have to learn to love those parts of me as well. So if I love myself like right now as I am, that's cool, but I'm going to keep expanding. And so all this expansion also has to be loved, also has to be given. So it's like if the bigger I get in terms of my spirit and my heart, like the more I have to like love myself. So right now I have a very solid foundation of it, right?
mm,
Where like I don't let anybody talk to me a certain way. I set boundaries, but the boundary setting is new. That's like 5 months ago, right?
yeah.
And now I'm like, oh, this is a new way for me to love myself. And then the next
Mm,
part is like dating because I've never dated like that before. And now I'm like, yo, like I was at a wedding and I was like watching all these people and I was like, holy shit, dude, I should have a partner. And I was like, why don't I have a partner? I deserve one. And it felt like this big moment of like, it sounds kind of silly to say, but before I didn't realize that.
yeah.
Like I was like, I'm never gonna have that. I don't deserve that, blah, blah, blah. And I was just sitting here watching these people and I was like, dude, there's no reason that I shouldn't have that, right? And it was such a weird kind of like wake up call for myself that was like I need to tend to that now. Like I need to take care of that. I need to feed love into that part of me that deserves a partner or wants a partner and wants to put work into that too.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. And you're like so worthy and deserving of all that stuff. It's like
Yeah.
another level to unlock. One of the things that I learned when I started dating my current partner, and I've written about this and she's talked about it, so it's not like a bad thing that I'm sharing.
Yeah.
As a caveat, I have permission. It's public knowledge, but that when we first started dating, I was bored,
Mm-hmm.
and I was bored because it was like a healthy relationship dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
There was no games, there's no drama. There was open and honest communication. I never had to guess anything. There was no like wild blowout arguments, makeup sex. It was just like it was healthy.
Yeah.
And I mistook that for boredom for a
Yeah.
while. Like I wanted
Yeah.
to break up with her, but then I went down to write my pros and cons list and there's no cons. And I was
Yeah.
like, I was so confused. I was flummoxed. Like,
Yeah.
what is this? And it took me a while to recognize, oh shit, this is healthy.
Yeah.
This is a healthy relationship. Am I grown up? Am I doing this right? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
wow, what I've done.
Yeah. Our brain. Or sorry, go ahead.
No, good.
As our brains are conditioned to work that way,
Yeah.
and that's one of the biggest things that I teach kids. So I'll show you something. I've talked about it a couple of times, but this is that therapist recommended this book to me, and I need to learn this author's name because it's not good. Because he was the person that really helped me with this. But he was like, you just have to retrain your brain. Like literally, like the reason why it felt so comfortable to chase unhealthy relationships was because subconsciously I didn't believe I deserved things that were well. And so just saying like, I believe that these things are well once like doesn't work, right? Like I don't saying I deserve this. You can get someone to get you to say I deserve this and you might cry. And then tomorrow you wake up and you're like, just kidding, you piece of shit. You don't deserve it, right? And so he was like, you have to kind of like actively retrain your brain, right? And so sometimes we have experiences where we meet people who like change everything for us, right? Or like over time we have these learnings. But I got really aggressive with it. So I wrote like this little note that says, I love myself, and it's almost 4 years old. And I used to have notes everywhere that said it. It was like on my mirror, it was in my car, and every time I saw it, it was my reminder to say it over and over in my head. So basically for like a month, if I wasn't teaching or if I wasn't actively speaking to someone or doing something that required my full attention, in my head, I was just saying, I love myself over and over and over again. And it felt kind of like wild. It felt really weird. But then I started to notice these like little changes where I'd like make a self-deprecating joke and then immediately be like, actually, I don't feel that way. And I'm like, whoa, or I'd like, about to do something bad for my body. And then I'm like, no, this, like not my body. And I didn't realize that my mind was now starting to respond to this idea of I love myself, which just it was like if I'm starting to beat myself up, and it's like no, buddy, like be nice, and it just switched. It just switched. So it doesn't mean that I don't doubt myself. It doesn't mean that I don't struggle at all, but it means like at the core of me, I care about myself. Like, just like if my student makes a mistake or if my student is messing up, it doesn't mean that I don't love them. I still love them, but I got to be there for them in a way that supports them and helps guide them. That's the same process I use with myself, you know?
I love this, and I just adore you. And where can people find you on the internet?
Dude, probably crying about kids somewhere.
I meant more literally.
So I right now on TikTok and Instagram and YouTube. Those have been kind of my three areas where I'm putting content out. And it's all underneath the handle DonoFriend. So DonoFriend, DonoFriend. And yeah, no, I mean, reach out. Like, if you're listening to this and you're like, I want to talk, like, reach out, because I still have the space and capacity to like talk to people randomly, and that's like all I want to do right now. And it's like, this is how I meet people like Jeremy, right? Like, who are amazing and fantastic. So there's no, like, I do coaching for kids as well. So ages like anywhere from fourth to, I didn't mean to do this, but now I have undergrad students like requesting coaching too. So if people are interested in coaching, that's also something that I do. But right now I'm kind of just waiting for my show to, that's like the next big thing. So we'll see.
Yeah. Do you want to tease about the show at all, or describe it, or shall we just
let the biggest tease I can give? That's
okay. We'll just let them, if you're listening, there might be one day, possibly, definitely 100%. It's happening. You'll see this dude on the television or internet near you.
Yeah.
Thank you for who you are and what you do.
Oh man, you too. Let me just hold that mirror back up to you real quick.
No, you got to receive this shit, man. I'm throwing praise down your throat.
I'm receiving it, but I want to give it back too. You know, it's a mutual thing, right? It's a mutual thing. I think it's really great, and it's really important to have conversations like these. So thanks for facilitating it.
You're very welcome, and I'm glad we connected. And look forward to more conversations.
Yeah, homie, absolutely. Thank you so much.
Donovan Hall, isn't he just wonderful? Isn't he just somebody that you want to support and follow along with, and just high five and give a pat on the back and a shove forward and say, Donovan, keep doing that. We need that. I believe in you. You're a wonderful person. Yes. In my opinion, yes is the answer. Anyway, Donovan is on the Instagram, and I have included links in the show notes for you to get in his world. He was on the Today Show. He's doing big things. He's going to have a show at some point. I love it. I love you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for following along. Push that subscribe button and you won't miss an episode being downloaded into the pocket or purse of your choosing. Thank you for the 5-star reviews. Thank you for supporting and sharing and sending this to your friend and saying, hey, you got to listen to this guy. I love his podcast and he makes a lot of sense. I really think you're going to like it. Every little bit does help. I appreciate you so much. Thank you for being here, and I will talk to you soon.